Hello there, everyone. So excited to be back with you. This is the first interview that I am having for 2021. It is with one of my very special and dearest friends, and we're going to have a wonderful conversation that I think is going to be a blessing to many of you. And so, for those of you who are coming on live, I want to welcome you. And for those of you who are listening to the replay, welcome to you also. So glad to have you here with us. Today, we're going to have Chuck Smith, and Chuck is going to be talking. We're going to have a really raw conversation about men, their emotions, and grief. So while we're doing that, we're going to waiting for a few people to hop on. We're going to go ahead and make this public so that people can see it, and then Chuck can share it, and then we're going to get right on into the interview. While you are at it and while we're doing this, please share this to your people, share this to your page so that people can watch it, because I am sure that either there is a man in your life that may not, this episode is called Permission to Feel. So there may be someone that, that's in your life that doesn't fully, have the ability to express himself. You might not know how to do that, or you may be a woman that wants to know more about how to express and really deal with the men in your life. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to make this public so that you all can share it to as many people as possible, because again, this is going to be about helping some people. And what better way to start off 2021 than to really deal with the things that need to be dealt with. So with that being said, all right, it is public now, so you all should be able to see it. All right. So again, welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope that you all can see me okay. Can you see me okay, Chuck?
I see you fine.
All right, awesome.
Yes.
It seems like I look a little, I might need to, well, it's okay. We'll figure it out. Looks like my phone is a little, hold on, y'all. Let me see if y'all can see me okay better. So anyway, with that being said, it kind of looked like I was being a little ashy.
That's that aura. That's that aura.
Is that my aura?
Yep.
The light is really bright. So I don't know if it's the light that's doing it or if it's me. So either way, let's just hop on right into it. So
Right.
Chuck and I, just to kind of share how we met. Chuck and I met because he is a microbiologist. He's a scientist. For those of you, he's an educator. For those of you who know me and my work, in the scientific world and in the cannabis world and in the natural healing world, that's how we really came together. We had a mutual acquaintance, which is actually his cousin, who introduced us, and we just really became fast friends and connected ever since. But one of the reasons why I was so drawn to Chuck and his story is not because of his brilliance as a scientist and as a microbiologist, but because of his process. I'm always interested in the human story, but Chuck's process of grief, when he cared so long and so just so dedicated to his wife, Sherry, who passed away of cancer after a long battle. And Chuck, knows, that process. And he's been very open about not only his continued undying love for his wife, but the process of what it's like to love someone and lose them. And as a man, what often happens is men are expected to get right back into the game. They're expected to not feel, to not process, to not be down in the dumps. And they oftentimes are expected to just kind of get right back in there. And so we wanted to have a really real and raw conversation about what it's like for men to grieve, what it's like for men to express their emotion, and really kind of give some permission, especially when there's so much loss going around right now, whether it's a job loss, whether it's a relationship loss. There's a lot of loss happening in the world right now, and so we thought it was a perfect time to come in and have the discussion. So Chuck, welcome to the program. I'm so happy to have you, my friend. We've talked about this for a long time. I wanted to wear scarlet and gray today, but I thought that it would probably not be a good idea to wear the Ohio State colors after you gave me such a hard time.
Speaking of grief, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Peace and love to the Buckeyes.
I'm almost in tears laughing. So let me give you all the backdrop before we get into the serious stuff. Chuck's an Alabama fan, and
I'm from Alabama. I'm in all teams Alabama fan, but since Alabama particularly was in the playoff this year, it could go Auburn too sometimes. So let me clarify that. But I'm sorry, continue.
He knew I was talking a lot of smack about
Oh,
the Buckeyes,
oh,
and we played Alabama in the championship. We exchanged some text messages in which I was humbled, and so I told Chuck that I would publicly congratulate them for the championship win, and yeah. And so, with that being said, let's get right into the
oh. Appreciate it.
it's right into the yeah, it's OSU. That's right. OH. That's
Right.
Chemo saying OH. Welcome. So getting right into it. Um take us through what it was like, first of all, when you first, because I know that you talk about, your relationship with Sherry a lot on your social media. The Knowing Place podcast that you're a host of, is a tribute to her.
Mm.
Tell people a little bit about yourself, and then take us through that process of when it was like when you first encountered each other, when you first knew that you were in love.
Oh, wow. Well, the unusual thing about that is that um, I was about 16 years old when I first saw Sherry. And,
Mm,
most 16-year-old boys aren't focused on a serious relationship. Sure, they may like girls and interested in having a girlfriend, but knowing that this is somebody that you want to know long term at 16 is highly unusual. So when I first saw her, I was like, that's somebody I have to know.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so I eventually just, and I was a pretty shy person, so I wasn't really forward. So I eventually just out of the blue called her, found her number, found her. That's back in the days we used to use the phone book, literally, and her number was listed in the phone book.
Wow. Wow.
It actually said I found her parents' names, and it said children's phone underneath it,
Oh.
literally. And I called that, and she answered, and I said, "Hey, I'm Chuck, and you don't know me, but
Wow.
I saw you, and I decided to call you." And she was always such a open, loving person. So she entertained me. It wasn't like, who are you calling me? I don't know you. It was like, hi, I'm Sherry. Nice to meet you. We talked a few minutes, and that was the
Aw.
initial call. And that's where
Wow. So you just really, as they say these days, you hopped in the DM, but the DM was not
the,
the direct
the
message, it was
DM
the
was a
phone book.
landline. It was a literal rotary dial landline. That's dating myself, but that's
Wow.
for real, for real. So
So how long had it been from the moment you saw her that you had to find her and find her number and had the courage to make that phone call?
I want to say a month or less. Because I
Wow.
ask around, like, who is this girl that cheers for this school here? And they're like, oh, that's Sherry Grace. I'm like, okay, who is she? Like, oh, she's so and so. Her dad owns this. And so after a few days, I just hopped in the phone book and was like, I'm going to call her.
Wow.
Total. And so before I ever met her formally, we talked on the phone maybe once or twice.
Wow. Okay.
Then another friend of mine saw us at the skating rink. She used to hang out at the skating rink on like Sunday evenings. And she said, I want you to meet somebody. And so he
Wow.
introduced us formally. And of course, I was bashful, looking all at the ground and carrying on. But that was my first official meeting, and then that's where it started from.
Okay. So you met, you
Yeah,
called her, you
Carter.
gave her a random phone call and said, "Hey, I'm Chuck. I saw
Oh,
you. I
yep,
thought you were gorgeous. I
absolutely.
wanted to meet you."
Yes,
She's open. She's like, "Hi, I'm Sherry." You have the
right,
conversation a couple of times.
right.
Did it did you remain? How long did it take before you kind of started dating? Did you remain in contact? Did you stay together? How did that go?
So after that initial call, every Thursday after a Different World and Cosby Show went off, you got to be a little older to know what that's about.
I know what
Every
that's about.
Thursday used to come on. After those two shows went off, that was my appointed time to call her. So I would call her every Thursday after those two shows went off, and we talked for 30 minutes or so as a routine from that initial call. And that started the routine. I still remember her number. I still remember the phone number from
Wow.
1986 or 87, 86.
Wow.
Still remember the number. And so, we went out a couple of times thereafter. um, and just became fast friends. But I was pretty much in the friend zone though. Never really
Oh,
from there that time. It never really blossomed into anything, committal or serious. We were just good friends, and I go by and visit and go out sometimes, but strictly friend zone. To my frustration, of course. But I was
okay.
tickled just to be able to be in her company. So
Okay. So then take us through the process, accelerate time for us a little bit.
okay,
Did you then, at what point did you get out of the friend zone? How did your lives, kind of intertwine? What happened
right.
there?
So we remained great friends throughout the rest of high school and throughout college even. And again, I was always friend zone, so we would see each other holidays and things like that. But I would always pretty much invite myself, kind of, which I didn't really like, but I did it anyway because I really wanted to see her. So um, fast forward through that, and I got to a point where I got so frustrated with not being anything but a friend. I just resolved in my mind, well, she don't want to be with me, then let me stop pursuing. I'm not gonna unfriend you as in common terminology, but I'm gonna stop trying to pursue you as a love interest. So I kind of backed off of trying to pursue that. And um, I remember when my son was born. This was in year 2000. Fast forwarding a little bit. I called her and let her know, and she was happy for me, of course. And yeah, again, remaining friends. I remember getting her graduation gift for her law school graduation and things of that nature. So we remained close. Um, and so my son was born. So I got married
You got married to someone else.
to someone else, not to her.
Okay.
Again, I had resigned or resolved in my mind that we weren't going to be together. So let me move forward with my life.
Sure.
And unfortunately, that marriage did not work out. And went through a rough time with that marriage, and really built my faith up because it was a rough time going through that divorce and all that. Um, and so, of course, she heard through the grapevine that I was going through that. Of course, I didn't know this after we reconnected. So what happened was the day my divorce was final was Sherry's birthday. Totally random.
Wow.
So I
Wow.
went out to eat by myself, and she was in the restaurant with her family celebrating her birthday.
Wow.
Now she lived in Atlanta at the time. So what are the odds that she would be in the shows, Alabama, Florence, Alabama, at the same restaurant I'm at the day my divorce is final, and I see her. So I go over to her table. I say, "Hey, happy birthday," because I never forgot her birthday. She's like, "Oh, you remember?" I'm like, I forget your birthday. I always remember your birthday. So,
Aw.
told her happy birthday. That was the initial reconnect after, and so we kind of started chatting on the phone again after that because, again, she had heard what I was going through, and so we reconnected. And she said, "No, of course I was concerned about you. I didn't want to reach out because you being married. I didn't want it to be awkward," and I understood that. And so we reconnected that way. And then so after several weeks of just chatting on the phone again and reconnecting, she said, "Well, hey, I'm thinking about taking a job in Vienna, Austria. And so I want you to pray." She was an attorney for Coca-Cola. And she said, "I want you to pray for me about this job. Should I take it? Should I go?" Just, I said, "Cool, I got you." So a few weeks passed. And so she calls back one evening and says, I said, "So you taking the job? What happened? You calling to let me know what's up?" She's like, "Well, no." She said, "I had a physical and I have colon cancer." And so, of course, my heart dropped like, oh. So I said, "Okay." So understand this. After coming out of the divorce I was in, I was not interested in being with anyone. I had resolved in my mind after this divorce, you know what? I'm good with just getting closer with my creator and just living a life that represents my creator. I'm not interested in any emotional investment in anyone else after going through that. But I was still her friend. So as her friend, I said, "Well, look, I'm going to stand with you in this as your friend." So she said, and she told me later, "That's why I called you, because I knew you would at least pray for me, you know."
Oh.
And so after that initial call, a few weeks passed, and I said, I want to come to Atlanta to check on you because, you got this diagnosis. You got to be scared. And they pretty much rushed her right into surgery. You know how they do it. They get you right into surgery and chemo and radiation and start to poison you to death, essentially, and hack on you as soon as possible with the conventional treatments. But at any rate, I came over to Atlanta. And when I came to see her, we went to the Cheesecake Factory, and we were sitting there talking. And I asked her point blank, I said, "Do you want to live?" which sounds like an odd question. Who, of course, everybody wants to live, but I wanted her to affirm that out loud. She said, "Of course, I want to live." I said, "Okay, well, I'm gonna stand with you in faith, and stand with you through this. Again, strictly as your friend. I'm not trying to be romantic with you. This is serious, and I'm not interested because of what I've been through. Plus, I'd already put you to the side because you never gave me a chance before. That's my mindset. But after that visit, I realized I still love her, but I still wasn't gonna pursue it. I just realized, man, she still does it for me. So that was so around July of 2007. Um, that's when she got diagnosed. Oh, that's when I got my divorce and I saw her. Around October, November of 2007, she got her diagnosis and I went to check on her. December of 2007, we started dating.
Mm-hmm.
Against my own no interest. Remember, I wasn't interested just a couple of months ago. Now we're dating all of a sudden in December of 2007. And May of 2008, we got engaged. In
Wow.
November of 2008, we got married. Just that fast. I mean, it seems fast, but this is somebody I've been on and who I've been connected to. So the fact her diagnosis did not deter me from wanting to be with her. I understood what well, we know what cancer is. We all heard it, but it wasn't a deterrent for me. It wasn't well, you're this sick. I don't want to get involved into a relationship and you have a life-threatening disease. I never gave it a second thought. And so November 2008, we got married and we began this journey of marriage as well as, surviving cancer.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that's how it started. And as I say, though, my previous marriage and the ordeal I went through with that, it prepared me to stand with her in that battle because coming out of what I came out of and having to exercise my faith and grow my faith literally in that situation gave me a level of faith to stand with her that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
Take me through. Okay, so because first of all, for someone, that has to be love, right? To
Has to be.
hear the diagnosis, right? I see Akia is saying destiny is destiny. Wow, great story.
Mm.
It's really sometimes difficult because I know you and I have had many conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always been difficult for me to put into words what it must have been like for you because a lot of people would not hear a diagnosis like colon cancer.
Right.
And still say, I want to spend the rest of my life with you.
Right.
And vice versa.
Right.
What was that like for you? Did your mind go to there? Did your mind go to places like, should I do this? Should I not do this? Or what was that like for you? Because I know a lot of people think, those types of things through. And it sounds like you were focused solely on how you felt about her from when you saw her as a 16-year-old boy.
Right. I can honestly say never once did I question being with her. I was never deterred by a diagnosis or anything else. I never second guessed being with her. And honestly, I guess, coming out, like I said, coming out of the ordeal I came out of, I believe that I know that our creator can do anything. And so cancer wasn't something that made me think was impossible to overcome. So my mindset the whole time from day one was, okay, I understand you got this diagnosis, but let's believe for the incredible.
So you basically held on to your faith more so than anything,
For sure.
And believe basically you probably believed that she would be healed.
Right, and I believe she would be healed in the way I expected, which was back to health here on earth. That's what I expected 100%.
Right, right.
For sure.
Take us through the process of when she was getting sicker. Fast forward a little bit.
So a diagnosis 07, we get married in 08. And so for 8 years, she chemo, radiation, almost daily treatments, and very resilient. To look at her, you probably wouldn't know most days that she was even battling that way. She always looked well, Skin was well, everything was good. And then probably towards this was probably May of 16. Um, she had some episodes that were a little bit more acute and unique. She had some metastasis or spreading of the cancer to, from her colon to her lung. And then she was driving down to Montgomery, got down to Montgomery for a book show. She has some children's books that she's authored, and she had searing pain in her head. She said she just blacked out, and it was like the worst pain she ever felt, and ended up getting hospitalized in Montgomery. I drive to Montgomery, and it had spread to her brain.
Oh.
Right. So this was before May, though. This was probably March of 16.
So the cancer went from her colon to her brain.
Colon to the lung, then to the brain. She also had some spots on her liver. They never really determined what those were or not. They didn't get that far, but they definitely went to the lung and the brain for sure.
Wow.
And so that's what the pain in her head was. So she started radiation with on the brain with that. And so, of course, that causes a lot of fogginess and a lot of mental, challenges with having your brain irradiated, as you would imagine. So she says to me around May of that year, 16, she said, I think I need to go home to my parents, just, so she'd have somebody to be with her during the day while I'm at work and things like that, which I understood. So I said, sure, go to your parents and you have somebody with you around the clock, to look after you and help you out, which is cool with me. And so speeding up from there, so I would go home on weekends and, spend time with them, things like that. Speeding up now to about October of 2016, she went to the hospital. And again, always bounced back, always resilient. So I went home this October and she gets out of the hospital. But a couple of days later, she had to go back. Just wasn't feeling well, just wasn't doing well. She went back in. So October 13th, I fly back home to be with her there in the hospital. So I come to the hospital and, this time when I came in to see her, though, she was noticeably different. Like I could see that she was struggling she was smiling, but, sometimes when somebody is really working to give that smile, it's like a strained, I'm giving 1,000% here just to smile at you. So I could feel that she was definitely in distress, but I still had a mindset of, I'm here to stand with you. We're going to walk you up out of here at some point, but, because we've been through this before. That was October 13th. So I spent every night in the hospital with her from that October 13th. And some of it's foggy, but at some point she became unconscious from heavy sedation from the pain. So they gave her heavy sedation. She was unconscious and she never regained consciousness again. So she was pretty much out for those couple of weeks and she passed away on November 2nd of 2016.
Wow.
That was it.
Let's talk about that process for you.
Well, being a biologist, what, and I was there, and I literally saw her take her last breath.
Wow.
I was looking in her face at that time, literally, and so my mind knew what I was seeing, but the rest of me was like, what's going on? Like, I knew what I was witnessing. When breath stops, we know what that means. So of course I put my head to her chest and there's nothing. And she had, this may sound strange, but she had one of the strongest heartbeats of anyone I've ever known. You could sometimes see it in her chest. Her heart would beat so hard. She just had a strong heartbeat. And so for the first time to not hear her heartbeat or feel it, whether it was, I used to feel it when I hug her and things just around the house in general. So to constantly not even feel that heartbeat or hear it anymore, I still wasn't registering what that meant. My mind knew, but I was still like, what is going on here? Like, what are you doing? Like, and so it was that day after I left the hospital, she passed away. That was the first day since her diagnosis that I wasn't standing in faith for her to be alive.
What was going through your mind?
Oh, wow. A million things. I didn't know what to do from there because all I had been doing the last 8 years was standing with her and being with her and spending time with her and caring for her and have her care for me still. Even through her sickness, she would still cook for me, and we still hang out. And when she felt like, we go shop, and we went to see Dave Chappelle. We went to do things when she felt up to it. We took advantage of feeling good, So I honestly was just like a rudderless ship. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do now with the rest of my life. Like, what I was focused on doing, which was standing and fighting with her, is now over.
Mm.
So my initial thought was, what? And I'm already a deep
There's
thing.
confusion. Like, what do I do now? Because, you were standing in faith. You
Absolutely.
were believing God for her healing.
Absolutely.
You're watching her decline. You then watch her take her last breath. And
Yes.
like you said, as a scientist, you knew what you were looking at, but it
100%.
was not in alignment with what everything that you had been believing for.
Right. Everything else disagreed with what I was seeing. My eyes and mind know what I'm looking at. Everything else is like, what is this?
Wow.
So you got that conflict there for starters. That's the start of the internal conflict right there.
What did that do to your faith?
Good question. It changed my faith. Um, and I won't say it changed it negatively, but it changed it in a sense, in a way that let me know that, for me personally, again, I wouldn't in any way discourage anyone's faith for anything. This is me personally.
Of
It
course.
made me realize that you can believe, you can profess, you can confess, you can do all the things you think build up and release and into the atmosphere, and it still may not work out like you wanted to or you expect it to. But
Wow.
that in no way changes who God is.
Mm.
It just gave me a new awareness that, for me, I was like, either I don't understand scripture like I thought I did, or I've been taught wrong. Because we've been taught, if you believe and you get a few people to agree with you and you claim it in Christ's name, then it's done. I ain't gonna say that's not true. I'm just gonna say it wasn't true in this circumstance. For my perspective, from my perspective. Again, I believe in the gospel. I believe what the Bible says. I just don't know if I understand it like I thought I did.
That resonates with me so deeply because, again, we've had very in-depth conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, sharing with you that, when my daughters passed away, not one, but two of
Right.
them passed away. And, I was praying, I was believing, and then I was left in that confusion.
Right.
Like, I did everything accordingly to what I had been taught. I did everything according to faith. I did
Right.
everything according to what I once believed, or not once believed, but I didn't understand, the why. If you ask A, B, or C, then the answer is yes. Well, I asked, I was sincere, I fasted, I prayed, I gathered the two or more together, I did all of those things, and the outcome remained the same,
Right.
where I was saying the unthinkable goodbye.
Right.
And I think for me listening to you, and why I wanted us to have this conversation too, is because so many people in 2020 have had unbelievable, unthinkable goodbyes.
Mm-hmm.
And men in particular, so many of them have had to continue to be strong. They've had to continue to get up and go to work and provide and keep it moving, and still be all the things that they think they're supposed to be, but they're hurting. And from a lot of times, from the time when they're little boys, they're taught, it's not manly to cry, toughen up, beef up, don't be a punk,
Right.
right? Whew, deep collective
Nonsense.
breath on all of that, right?
It's nonsense.
But it's true, right?
It is.
So with you, one of the things I've noticed is that you had, when I remember going back and when we first heard about it, and I went back through some of your tributes
Right.
and looked at, obviously she was stunningly beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
You could see just the radiance of peace, every photo, looking at your wedding photos, just absolute unconditional love. Now you have to deal with her absence.
Mm.
Let's talk about what that's like when the reality hit. You go home, right? You'd already been through the process of the illness.
Right.
Now you have to figure out how to pick up the pieces. Like you said, where do I go from here? What do I do with the rest of my life now?
Right.
Right? How was that process?
Wow. It's a process. I'm big on analogies. So and let me say this too. Even now, more than 4 years later, I'm still wondering about my direction in life. I'm still not really sure. So let me say that to be fair.
Very important that you said that, because, and I want to kind of interject something on that note,
Mhm.
because grief is different for everyone.
Absolutely.
The process is different for everyone. And people oftentimes are taught, well, it's been a year, aren't you? It's been 2 years. It's been, and I was thinking to myself, even, this year, my grandmother passed away in 2004.
Right.
And most years I'm good. This year it was tough.
Right.
Right. And so it comes in waves. It comes and it goes. I missed her so incredibly much this year. And so
Right.
I'm glad you brought up that point so that we can give people permission to, like, listen, if you're still dealing with this, if you're still processing, whatever it is that you're grieving, know that your timing is your timing. Right.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Chuck.
So imagine being in a foreign place, right? You don't recognize any of your surroundings, but you know you got to move just to get out of wherever it is I am. I need to make a move to just start to find my bearings. So I'm in this foreign place, but I'm surrounded by thicket and bushes and trees. So it's hard to move. And in addition to being hard to move, I'm knee deep in mud. But
Mm.
every time I get ready to take a step, it takes all of my energy just to lift my leg out of the mud. I hadn't taken a
Mhm.
step yet. I just got my foot out of the mud. That's where I was initially. I don't know where I am, and I don't have the energy to move. In that time, though, talking to friends, being transparent about where I am, that's the only way I made it through. Hey, man, I'm struggling today. I just want to let you know I'm struggling. I'm not in a good mood. Being transparent and open. Progressing, if start to get to a place where, okay, I can see my surroundings a little better now. The mud's not quite as deep. Now it's maybe up to my shins. So I can move a little easier, but it's still a labor. So I don't want to hang out. I don't feel like driving anywhere. I don't want to get dressed. But I'm not as stuck in the mire as I was previously. So we're progressing some. I don't like to call it better. It's
Right.
never really
I get
better. You
that.
just progress. You learn to adapt. You adapt and you learn to cope differently. But let me back up though before that. There were some days in those early days where I couldn't get out of bed. I didn't care to take a shower. I didn't want to listen to music. And music is I'm not a musician. Hey, let's be clear. I cannot sing a lick, but I love music. If I don't want to listen to music, I know I'm in a bad space. I know that if I don't feel like hearing music, I know that my mind is in a bad place. So I didn't want to hear any music. I didn't want to hang out. Some days I couldn't get out of the bed, things of this nature. So back to my analogy though. So eventually you get to a place where, okay, it's a little easier to walk now. Okay, the thicket isn't quite as thick as it was before. But again, this kind of progression, y'all, comes from transparency and being open and honest with how you're feeling, having a circle around you that will listen to you and let you vent, and at the same time support you. Again, it's not about feeling sorry for you, just having someone to vent to.
I have a question on that note.
Sure.
I remember what it was like for me
Mhm.
when I felt like people meant well, but they said certain things that kind of made it worse.
Right.
Right. I didn't want to hear, oh, they're in a better place.
Right.
You rolled your eyes, so you know exactly what I was talking about.
Right.
um, or, well, at least you didn't lose both of them at the same time. Or, I know certain person, you sure you don't want to find some reason to go to the hospital? Because surely, and I'm like,
Right.
and I would be like, oh my God, just so in what ways were your support system, were they saying the right things, and in what type of wrong things were they saying? Because I think that sometimes people just don't know what to say, right?
I
Like sometimes I find myself now, like if someone's experienced a loss, I'll tell them I'm sorry. I'll tell them I'm praying for them, but I don't say a lot for fear of saying the wrong thing,
right.
that could kind of, make the sting, you know, a little bit worse for them. So,
Right.
you said that your support system was helpful, right?
Right.
And so, and, but did you ever have any moments where people said things that, were not so helpful?
You know what I did, but the beauty of it was that again, I'm always thinking, and I'm a big on perspectives, and I always, being a scientist, I look at everything from 1,000 different angles. So I
Right.
realized that, like you said, people say and do what they think will help you feel better or be better. It's
Yeah.
not malicious. It's not insensitive. It's just
Right.
sometimes people don't understand that just being available is enough.
Yeah.
You don't feel like you have to say something. So I realized that people are saying and doing what they feel will help me. And that helped take away any offense that I would take to say,
Yeah.
to go off and say, why are you saying that to me? I get it. You're saying
Yeah.
what you feel like. So what that showed me and has helped me do is when some my friends or anybody is going through it, hey, sometimes I just need you to sit with them.
Yeah.
You ain't got to
Yeah.
talk. I don't need your input. Just sit here and let's be
Be
quiet together.
present. Just be
That's
present.
it.
Yeah.
Now, if you ask me something you want me to give it, then I'll say
Yeah.
something. But I'm not
Yeah.
going to start quoting scripture and just start, that's not the
Yeah.
time. You got to have
Right.
some wisdom.
Right. If you notice, I tended to ask your permission. Like, is it okay if I say, or is it
Right.
okay? Are you open to me sharing,
Absolutely.
because I want to, I don't want to just start, hey, well, this is
Right.
what I did, and weepy may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. You know what I mean? I
Right.
didn't, you know what I mean? So I just want, and so you did you always would say, yeah, or I say, well, we'll say we'll talk at, a certain time, and
Right.
and so but I always wanted to make sure that I was like super respectful of, what you may or may not have been open to hearing at the moment. Let's
Right.
take a couple of comments here. I
Okay.
say, this is great advice. Just be available from IKEA. 7 is saying peace and power family. IKEA is saying thanks for sharing this unconditional love story. And
Mm.
that's really what it is. It is a beautiful unconditional love story. So for those of you who are listening, this is not, about, spreading sadness, but really, as you see, as we're going to weave through this, you're going to be able to see hope. You're going to see the way that Chuck is inspiring the world right now, and how he's using this example of unconditional love. I mean, think about it. He said, I do after the cancer diagnosis, right? After, he believed with her the entire time. And, and stayed present. And the truth of the matter is, he still shares that unconditional love,
Oh man.
for her, even though her physical body is not here. Spiritually speaking, you know, that's the love of his life. And everybody, who, will touch, connect with him will know that. And so let's talk about, the support system, what that was like. And then, how did your belief system as a man affect the way in which you grieve? Because you're very open about it. Like, you're
Mhm.
probably more open than anyone that I have seen in terms of being a man. Most men just kind of, they'll thank you for the condolences, and you'll say, hey, how are they doing? Oh, I'm good. I'm
Right.
hey, life happens, but that's
Right.
because they're taught to tuck it away. But
Right.
you didn't, and you haven't.
Right.
Right. So let's
Um.
talk about that.
I would say to to a point. I've always been a sensitive person. I get that from my mother. So I've always, well, I won't say I was a crybaby, but people have seen me cry before just growing up. If I get upset, I'm gonna cry. So I've never hidden my emotions at all. So I've always been that guy.
Oh, okay.
So to just for people who maybe didn't grow up that way, I get it that you don't show emotion. I understand that, but I'm not somebody who grew up that way. So it wasn't a problem for me to continue to be open about my emotions, about my feelings, things of that nature. Um, but there's so much liberty and cleansing in showing your emotions as opposed to holding them in. Because when you hold them in, they take a toll on you physically, emotionally, spiritually, otherwise.
Yep. And
So
eventually cause illness
that's it. Or outburst. You
or
hold it in
outburst.
long and suddenly you go off one day at work, or you
Yeah.
jump on somebody, or so it's best to process it. That's why I always say, when it comes up, let it come out. If you feel like crying, cry. If you need to curse, curse. I mean, I don't condone that, but you understand what I'm saying. Get the frustration out.
You condone it when I do it though.
Yeah, hey, you money though, son. Right. So, but yeah, just get it out in some type of healthy way. Now, that's never an excuse. Oh, I'm in a bad mood today. Let me cuss folk out. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
It's not a ticket or a license to mistreat people at all. Mm-hmm. So definitely just be willing to process. And the beauty of it is, people in your circle, if there's somebody in your circle or people in your circle that ridicule you for that, they may not be your people.
Right.
Keep it real. Like if your boy, your girl, whoever saying, "Oh, you weak, you need to stop crying and you whining too much and you need to get over that," that might not be your folks. I don't know. Maybe they are, but I don't know. But I also was mindful of not consciously, because you can get. I noticed the attention that you get when you're in those places could be addictive if you're not careful.
Oh, that's such a good point. Wow.
So you could, if you ain't careful, you could put that face on and say, I want some attention. Let me get everybody know what I'm going through. Let me look somber so folks will give me a hug and come talk to me and check on me. You got to be careful not to get caught up in that attention seeking, even subconsciously. Not to use that as a tool or a crutch in order to manipulate or garner some attention. So I was aware of that too, not allowing myself to use my grief or my struggle in that grief as a crutch or a tool to garner some attention.
So it sounds like you had a lot of emotional intelligence already, right? To and that really, helped you to be able to deal with this tragedy. I don't know how else to call it. You know what I mean? So I don't want to say I don't know what word. What word do you use?
I definitely
describe what happened.
Tragedy. I feel like I always have said that I feel like a theft has occurred. It's like a robbery. I sincerely feel like, she should still be here. And I'm sure you talk to anybody else who's lost somebody they love, they would probably say the same thing.
Yeah.
They should still be here.
Right.
45 years old is not old.
Like something's not right. Something's not right about it. Right.
Right. To have.
How old was Sherry? How old was she?
She was 45 when she passed away, 37 when she got her diagnosis.
Wow.
And so she's got genes in her family. Her grandmother was nearly 100 when she passed. Her granddaddy was 98 or 99. Her father now is, in his 90s. So she has the genes for longevity. But, when you're battling against conventional medicine, you can't win that battle. The stuff is too toxic.
Wow.
So
Vanessa Young says, thank you for sharing and being transparent. Everyone has a different journey. Yes. Opening up to the conversation is huge. It's helpful for the healing process. I definitely agree, Vanessa. Tina says, such a beautiful story of heart and mind, information that can be used in our everyday lives. Very true.
And speaking of the heart, this is for everybody. And I'm getting more and more into psychology. I'm not studying it. I mean, just observing my own psychology. And the mind is so powerful, but so is the heart. And by that, what I mean is the heart, my heart at least, can override my logic. So sometimes my heart will say, man, wouldn't you like to see Sherry? And my mind will be like, yeah, wouldn't you like to see her? Wouldn't you like to give her a call and shoot her a text or something? And then my mind will click and say, no, you can't do that. But the heart longs and the mind will follow.
Mm.
So you got to watch what you attach your heart to, because it can override logic.
Talk more about that. When you say watching what you attach your heart to because it can override logic, are you saying that that would make the grieving process more difficult? Are you saying that because like how do you do that? Like how do
Right.
you turn off that heart switch, that desire that um that you have, like I
Right.
said just the other day, well it was, on the 11th of this month, so it wasn't quite
Right.
the other day, but it was the anniversary of my grandmother's passing, and I wish that I could dial that phone number. I remember the phone number, right?
Right.
And it felt unfair that I couldn't call. It felt it, and there are many times because I was closer to her than I've ever been to anyone, and I felt that it was unfair. Like
Mm.
you just said, like something's wrong, like you feel like you got cheated. And I think a
Right.
lot of people understand that. And how do you then reconcile that and then move into that place of peace?
And when I was talking about the heart, back to what you said about
Yeah,
the connection, even
yeah,
in a broad sense, just as an example, if
yeah.
your heart's attached to money, the love of money is the root of all evil. I want some money,
Me
but I
too.
don't love it. Here's my point though. If you in love with money, here, you'll formulate any kind of scheme to get some. You'll rob some folks, cheat, steal, lie. That heart will override your better logic of getting money legitimately. So don't love it. Don't attach your heart to it, because it can
Yeah.
override good judgment.
Mm-hmm.
So the same way with this process, I love Sherry, and because my heart's still attached to her in many ways, a lot of times still, even 4+ years later, it will override my mind. My mind knows better. My mind will say, dude, you were not going to see her today. No, you can't go to the mall and maybe run into her. She's not on earth anymore. So I still have this dream every now and then. And in my dream, my heart is saying, why are you here in this 1 2 bedroom condo by yourself? Why don't you get back with Sherry? Why are you here? Well, just pick up the phone and y'all reconcile, fix whatever you did. And then
Mm.
when my
So
mind clicks,
there, wow, that's interesting.
yeah, still, I just had that dream last week.
Wow.
Yeah, like you need to feel like, what, you here by yourself, man? Just go back home to her. Go get her. Like, go pick up the phone, let her know how you feeling, as if something has happened to separate us. And my heart is saying, man, get back, like fix it. And then my mind, once I get to a consciousness, my mind's like, it's that same cruel dream again. And
Wow.
it
Do you
takes me
think
there.
that's because, do you think that, are you still in the part of the grieving process that hasn't accepted it?
I I don't think so. You know, I think I have accepted it, but again, being the mind and the heart being as dynamic as they are, I think you can vacillate.
Um,
You can dip back to it
yeah,
sometime and you're there.
yeah,
Or even for a millisecond. It's like, oh man, why don't you give her
yeah,
a call? Maybe she'll call you today. Nope, she's not calling you today or ever again.
yeah.
You know, I've done things as, again, as silly as it may sound, I'll send her an email
Mm.
and I say, I hope to God I don't get a response for real. I don't really, like, because what does that mean? If somebody responds, what does that mean? Now I got a whole other bag of tricks to deal with, right?
Right.
Or I'll text her phone. I text her number and like, I hope I don't get a response. I'm gonna text it anyway. Or I'll comment on her Facebook post on her page and say, I miss you. I know I'm not gonna
I've
get a
seen
response.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like, and my logic is like, what are you doing? Like, is that crazy? Because my mind knows there's no response coming, but my heart is like, just maybe. So
Mm.
that's the psychology I've been wrestling with. Like, is this psychosis? Is this part of the process? Does it show you? Does it show you how close that loved one still is, even though you can't see them or touch them or feel them? They're in a dimension so close that sometimes you just feel them to a level that makes you long for them again. Like,
You
are they
know
working
that you
here?
know the answer to that one.
Yeah, it's like, am I feeling something right here? Like, but there's nothing here, but it's deep.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
It's complex. It's
Yes.
mysterious.
Yes.
And so I don't discount. I don't discount anybody's concept, precept, interpretation. I don't discount anybody's. If they say if you tell me you saw a furry unicorn walking down your street, I'm gonna investigate it with you. Because maybe furry unicorns exist. Who am I to say they don't? Nobody knows everything.
True.
So I had somebody tell me, "You mean to tell me you believe in a book with a talking donkey in it?" You know, in the Bible, there's an account where a donkey rebukes a man. I said, "Well, what? How many donkeys you think been on Earth since Earth been here? Let's just say 700 billion donkeys since Earth been here. Do you think there's a possibility in 700 billion donkeys that one of them could talk? Can you say absolutely not? No, you can't, because you don't know everything. Parrots can talk. You ever heard a parrot
True.
talk?
They do talk.
So how come one donkey out of all the donkeys that ever existed couldn't say something?
Right. I had a parrot cuss me out in San Diego.
Come on now.
Seriously. Somebody taught the parrots how to curse, and everybody
Yeah.
that walked past got cursed out.
So does it sound crazy? Absolutely
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah.
But who am I to say it's impossible?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't discount any person's. There's a fine line I've learned between genius and insanity. That's right here. Right here is genius, right here is insane. They ain't too far away from each other. So I don't discount anybody's logic, anybody's with wisdom, of course.
Right.
So I'm open that way, but I'm not gonna. We have to be careful with that, so as not to be led off in the wrong direction on some foolishness. But I don't discount a person's
experiences, right?
Whatever.
I don't think that that's crazy. But that's from the Book of Money, right? I don't think that that's crazy at all, because, I think that it's part of the process, to write on her page, "I miss you." I think that's part of the grieving process. You needed to say it, right? And you needed to feel like, it reached her somehow. Right. I'm one who would happen to believe it probably did. Some of the stories I've told you, right?
Right.
Some of my experiences. So, it doesn't take much for me because I've seen a lot in my lifetime and experienced a lot in my lifetime. So I totally get it. So you being already emotionally intelligent, you already having the ability to process this, and then you're doing it in the way that you need to do it. I think that that's actually really incredible. You've now gone forward. You've started this podcast, the Knowing Place podcast. Talk to us about the Knowing Place podcast and how it is a tribute to your beautiful wife, Sherry.
So let me say this too. Even though I'm still processing her absence, I am no longer a prisoner to it there's a difference between mourning and grief. Okay.
So Talk about that. That's good. That's a good statement. That's a good statement.
So mourning is, how do I make an analogy for this?
I can first of all, listen what you're saying, but I want you to unpack that for some people.
Right. Grief, I feel, is more of a spiritual experience that you can become a prisoner to. Okay, I think there's a spirit of grief, whereas mourning is more of a. I guess they're both processes to a level, but mourning is allowing yourself some time to acknowledge, be hurt by, process what has happened.
Okay.
Whereas grief, to me, in my opinion, is another level where it's a level of suffering that can imprison you, that can control you. And it has to be broken at some point. It can lock you up and keep you depressed for the rest of your life. So I think mourning is that healthy window of time that you use to go through. Again, I don't know. There's no timeline even for that. But I think grief is another level of that it's like an unhealthy level of mourning. A sustained, unhealthy level of mourning.
Wow.
And it's very powerful.
Yeah. When you talk about sustained, unhealthy level, I think I really understand that. right? And so, you know, I know we were having a very transparent conversation, right? I remember for me, I when I was with my former spouse, um, I remember how it bothered me after a while, you know, when our daughters, you know, let's say 10 years have passed, 15
Right.
years have passed, and he simply could not, he couldn't move forward. He
Right.
couldn't move on. You know, he still had very, very, very heavy grief. And my thoughts were, okay, we've had our time, you know, to process. We've shed our tears, but we still have three other children that
Right.
we have to still live for. There's still work to do. There's still things that need to happen. And so I get what you're saying because I didn't understand, you
Right.
know, and I don't know that I understand, you know, that, you know, the extended period of extreme heaviness where the inability to really live a full on life, you know what I mean,
Right.
is there. And so, you know, but I don't want to be insensitive to it either because I think that, you know, people will say, well, you know, it's time to move on, you know, et cetera, et cetera. You know, and I know that it's different for everybody, but I also agree with you that, you know, there is a time when, you know, it's time to get back and breathe again. It's time to take the next inhale because you still have breath. You
Right.
still have you still have life. Let me take a couple of questions. Let me take a couple of
Okay.
things we see here. Let me see. Got a couple of. Thank you so much for sharing. This is good. Okay. I see Wes had a couple of comments. She's asking about unpacking that and that part. Good. Um, Melissa saying, hey, Chuck, it's comforting to me to send my friend instant messages. He passed away in 2019. I send you love filled with prayers. That's,
Peace and love. Peace and love.
yeah.
Um,
Ernestine is saying, mourning can be temporary or for the moment. Yeah, I get that.
um,
Tina says mourning is physical, grief is spiritual.
mm,
Harriet says this is so true. Grief can consume your life if you stay there for too long. And it really can, right? And so I think that what you said, you know, is so important when you talked about, you know, not staying, you know, in certain spaces and, you know, and being careful about, you know, the attention that the addiction you know, that being addicted to the attention that
right.
that grieving can give you, but also understanding that, you know, there are times when you do need to reach out. There's times when you do need to connect with more positive energy and the strength from the others around you because you just don't have it right now.
Right.
You know what I
Um,
mean? Yeah.
and thinking about mourning and grief, if you think about, again, I'm big on analogies. Being a school teacher too, I try to use analogies. But
Yeah.
imagine that you socially drink. You go to a bar, you hang out and drink with your friends, cool, and you leave it at the bar. That's what mourning's like. Now, let's say that progresses to now you sit in your house and drink every day, and you lose your job, and you lose your family, and you're now homeless. That's what grief is like.
Mm-hmm.
So mourning is social drinker. Grief is I'm a full blown alcoholic that's locked into a pattern that I can't break on my own.
Wow, that's so good.
I'm
That's so
imprisoned
good.
by this thing. That's the
Yeah.
difference between mourning and grief.
Yeah. I
I
see
mean,
here, I'm going to take two more. Wiz says grief leads to depression. And and I know she understands that. And she said it robs you of your life.
absolutely.
That, you know, Wiz, you know, lost two people that are, you know, very, very close to her, you know, her
Right.
mother and her grandfather. And you know, she's, you know, still, you know, young. And so she definitely understands that part too. Just like many people have had to say the, you
Right.
know, the unthinkable goodbyes. Janae asks you a really interesting question when
Hmm.
she says, so what is your answer to move on? This is a biggie.
I'm a scientist and I'm still, you heard of the scientific method, right? I'm still, I don't know. I'm working on it. I don't know, but I am working to find out. That's what a scientist does. I
Mm.
don't know what the answer is, but let's work on it until we come across something that. So I'm progressive with it. I can't say I'm trying to find out. So I'm open. I listen. As I said, I don't discount anybody. You could be a 6-year-old kid or 96-year-old woman, I can listen to you. What you
Right.
gotta say? I might get something from that 6-year-old kid.
Right. You know what's so interesting? So I mean, and this is not, you're talking about it, but you're still in it, right? Like
I am.
you're still in it. And so the answer to moving on, I don't know that you're moving on, but you're moving through.
Through, right.
You know what I mean? And so, I think that that's part of the process, right? And so,
Right.
I think people might, I remember people would ask me before, well, at what point do you know that you're over it? Well, I don't know that I'm over it.
Or whatever.
I just learned to live. I learned to do what I think would make them, I have to frame it in this way. Like for me, I have to frame it to say, like, I know that the fuller of a life that I live, the happier I feel that I would make them. The
Right.
more, and that's for me, right? That I
Right.
have to, say I want to make them proud. So I'm going to live, I'm going to smile, I'm going to love, I'm going to laugh, I'm going to joke, I'm going to wait for Ohio State to beat Alabama next year, things like that. And so,
That's delusional though. We can that may be some grief kicking in. See how that delusion back that up. I'm here for you. Ain't no judgment. This judgment free zone, everybody. Judgment free zone. Y'all keep an eye on it for me. We'll check somebody, please.
I had to lighten it up a little bit for
Right.
Chuck, because it was so funny, you all. To interject this really quickly, Chuck, he was quiet. He and his best friend Orlando were very quiet, before the game. But after Alabama won, did they give me the hardest time? I did not think that Chuck had it in him. So I'm thinking that I'm just going to keep jabbing and sending the Ohio State memes to his phone, and I had no idea that they were going to give it to me so terribly. But next year. So Kim
But
Rendia says, yes, you don't get over it. You learn how to work through it. Agreed.
it,
Janae says, understandable, but difficult to process. I don't think you're ever over it, but you become different in your acceptance. Wow.
facts. It's like, again, I use an analogy. If right now you lost your eyesight, family, somebody asks you 3 years from now how you feeling about being blind, you're gonna be like, I used to could see and now I can't see. That's how I feel about it.
Wow.
You ain't gonna never be cool with not seeing no more.
Right.
You'll never
That's
get
so
over
good.
not having your sight when you know what color looks like and what food looks
Right.
like.
So
you will
good.
learn to live with it, but you're never over it once you've
Yeah.
had it and lost it. It ain't no getting over it. You just and you don't get better from it. You just learn to, as she said, you adjust and move forward.
Mm-hmm. Tina says, I lost one family member every month for 6 months, and it's hard to process the why. Agreed. And sometimes, and it sounds so unfair,
Mhm.
but to have to live in unanswered questions,
It's tough.
and accept the fact that we may never know, and
Right.
I remember, and on that note, Tina, I remember what it was like, just having to come home and to explain, and people, well, why do you think that this happened? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Well, and I remember, and Chuck, remember you and I talked about this, especially as it related to the faith question, right? Or the
Right.
faith. And I remember the first thing I did, and there was a pastor here in Columbus, Ohio, that helped me so much, and I will never forget it, even all those years ago. The first thing I looked at and I thought, well, did I not pray enough? Was it something that I didn't do? Did I forget? Did I not tithe? Did I, I went and looked for the source of my sin
Right.
as to why I had to say goodbye to my children. And
Right.
for a mother to look at a casket, I understood what you were saying, that you're confused. It doesn't make sense. You know what you're looking at,
Mhm.
but you don't understand it fully. And it's hard to explain what that's like, right? It's hard to explain when you're looking at it and you're standing in a cemetery and you're watching and you're like, this doesn't make sense
At all.
This is not how this is supposed to go. I'm supposed to get old. They're supposed to bury me. I'm not supposed to look at this. But yet, day after day, parents, say goodbye to their children, you know, uncles say goodbye to their nieces and nephews, brothers and sisters say goodbye to each other. You know what I mean? It just happens. It's not, it's, we're here and then we're not, you
Right.
know? And so to have to ask the question, well, why? You know, we don't. And I think that I had to get to the point of, I will never know, but I needed to be honest about my emotions. I needed to
Yes.
be honest that I had a time when, you know, I didn't know if it was okay to be mad about it, because the whole, oh, well, God has a plan, right? And surely, you know, there has to be a reason. You know, his ways are higher than our ways, his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. But I had to be, and I tell you when I got free, and I'm
Mm.
talking to all of you, and I'm talking to you too, Chuck, obviously.
Yes.
I had to acknowledge that it felt unfair, that I wasn't okay with it. I know I don't have a choice but to accept it because it is what it is.
Right.
But I had to acknowledge that I was angry at one point, that I didn't like it. I didn't understand it. I had questions. And, but it was what it was. But there was a point, and I was a movie called Collateral Beauty that Will Smith was in. And it was such a beautiful, I mean, and it was about his grief. He lost his wife and his child. And I remember feeling like I needed to go watch that alone. I
Mm.
was living in Las Vegas, and I walked out into the parking lot, and it was the first time I let out a real cry, a cry that was not about accepting that it was okay. That, you know, because was it okay? No. Are they okay? I believe yes, that they
Yes.
are okay. But was what happened okay? No, right? It wasn't okay. And I didn't want to keep making it okay. The more I made it okay, the more I was holding it in and trying to do what I was taught to do, you know,
Right.
instead of processing the reality of the emotion, whether it was the anger, whether it was, you know, any of it. You know, it just didn't feel like it was right. And I'll be honest, today it doesn't feel like it was right. You know, I
Right.
remember when Kobe Bryant died, all the sports world, everyone was like, this isn't right. Kobe and all those, what? That's Kobe Bryant, right? And I'm sure you felt that way. Wait a minute, what? This is
Or like
shocking.
when Aaliyah died.
Or when Aaliyah died, right? You know, Prince. I mean, we're like, wait a minute, what? You
Right.
know, and so I'm sure you were feeling the same way. Share, no, I'm believing for this. I don't
Right.
understand this. You know, me, I go into the hospital with a baby, I leave with empty arms. What? I'm
Right.
supposed to go home to that room. It doesn't make sense to me, right? And so it's like being able to say, all right, I don't understand it, right? And I probably never will. I don't like it. I don't have to.
Right.
I don't have to. But I can make a decision to continue to live. I can make a decision to inhale. I can make a decision to get out of bed. And I think that's part of what you're saying. I mean, I can't, and I mean, I want to tell you right now, I remember when we first met, you are in such a different space than when you and I first talked, right? I remember looking in your eyes, and we were out sitting at dinner, and I looked at you. All of us were sitting there, and you were staring off in space, and you might not have even realized it.
Mm.
And I said, Chuck, I said, and I thought to myself, he's thinking about his wife, right? He's doing his best to be here, but there were definitely times when you were gone, right? And I could see it. I could see the pain behind your smile.
Mm.
And but now, you know, there I can see there's more light behind your eyes, right? You
And there's
know,
a reason for that.
yeah, let's talk
You,
about that.
you spoke about how you got free, and for me, getting
Yeah.
free. And I love the way the Most High works, and that I believe that He speaks to each of us in the language we best understand.
Yes.
So for me, being a scientist, I love details. How do we
Yeah.
get from point A to point Z? What's the steps in between? And they got to make sense.
Yeah.
So I had a dream, very detailed dream that I took notes about. And the place I went to in this dream was called the Knowing Place. So that's why I named my podcast The Knowing Place.
Do you mind sharing this with people?
Not at all.
Let's
Uh,
let's talk about it, because I remember you calling me about when it happened.
yes, I'll give a synopsis. My first and second podcast episodes are about the detail, but I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. Pretty much, I went to this place called the Knowing Place, and I was able to encounter Sherry's spirit along with her guardian angel spirit in this place. The place was just like a restaurant setting, but I was able to encounter those spirits in this place. And the way these spirits were adorned, at least Sherry was, in the color blue, it's very significant to heavenly references there. Um, and what was conveyed to me in this place was I've been allowed to be here to see you because I've been praying to God. God, just give me something to let me know she's okay. And so it was pretty much conveyed to me that I'm good where I am. I'm only here because I'm being allowed to be here. Pretty much this is what you asked for. And it was very brief because my prayer had always been to just give me a glimpse that she's okay. And so it was very fast in that it was very short because that was my prayer. And it was impressed upon me that I didn't want to let you hang out there too long because I didn't want you to get attached to trying to communicate on that side with that side.
Yeah.
So it was everything I prayed for with the details that were undeniable, even for a
Mm-hmm.
scientist.
Mm-hmm.
And so my first two podcast episodes, the first one, if I'm not mistaken, is called Into the Blue because of the blue color and what it represents. So if you get a chance, please check out that episode, y'all, on the Knowing Place podcast. The first two episodes take you through our journey together, kind of what we talked about at first, and then also takes you through the dream I had and the vivid details of that dream that gave me liberty from my grief. So that's what liberated me from my grief, was this dream that I had that was very detailed, a lot of symbolism in this dream, a lot of specific words in the dream that mean things I had no idea. Actually, the name of the place I went to, it was a restaurant setting, was called the University. And the university. And so university has a very specific meaning too that you hear about there in the podcast. The reason I call my podcast Annoying Place is in this place, there was communication, but there was no speaking. You just knew. It was impressed upon me. So I knew what was being conveyed, but it wasn't spoken to me. I got to the place, but I didn't drive or walk or ride. I just showed up there, if you will. So the reason I call it the knowing place is it's just a place where it's a level where you just receive, whether it be knowledge, emotion, love, you just receive it and you just know without thinking. That's the essence of the knowing place. And then the colors and the symbolisms there in that dream that just really gave me my liberation, that was undeniable, point upon precept upon precept, upon symbol that let me know this is me, God, talking to you here. I'm proving it by the order. I'm proving it by, you can back up here what you see with what's written in my word. And I knew undeniably that God gave me that dream to free me from my grief finally.
Flash experience. It really sounded more like an experience, especially, due to the deep impact that it's had, on your life. And what happened to you after you had that experience?
You know what? As I said, it liberated me from my grief. And people still ask me, so how did you feel, or what changed? And it's kind of like I said to you before, if you won $50 million tonight and I ask you, well, how do you feel? You're going to be like, I don't know. Let me think about this thing. It's $50 million. I've never had 50 million before. I don't even really know what that means. Let me process the fact that I got 50 million. I can't tell you how it's changed me yet. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. And so for me, I'm still there with the dream. Like, I don't know exactly what to do with it all yet, but I do know for sure that it has liberated me from that grip of that unhealthy grief that I was in.
Yeah.
So now I can think about her and it not ruin my day. I still get emotional because I still want to hang out with her. I want to hang out with her right now.
Yeah.
I want to go out to eat right now with her.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't bring me down. It used to have me prisoner. And the beauty of all this is, and let me say this, because in our community, we've talked about before how therapy is frowned upon by a lot of us. And I did go to therapy, but the beauty of it is, my therapist told me that the things I had already been doing were what I should be doing. She had nothing to help me with. She was like, "What you've been doing?" So by what I was doing was, y'all, just be transparent, be open, embrace your emotions. When they come up, let them come out, and keep processing them that way. And eventually, they have a less and less of a hold on you. And it's my prayer that the Creator will give you some type of experience, some type of word, symbolism, sign, something that lets you know this is me talking to you. I'm giving you this to free you from what you're trapped by. It's all going to be okay one day. I know you can't see it and understand it fully now. Just trust that I have your best interest at heart, and one day you'll be able to piece some of this together.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
So good.
The fact that we wake up every morning is proof that we're supposed to be here, y'all. If you wasn't supposed to be here, then you'd be out of here. So if you
True.
wake up in the morning, take that as a affirmation that there's work to do and that you're here for a purpose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Harriet James, and thank you for that and for sharing that, because like I said, I know for sure. I mean, it was actually miraculous.
For sure.
Even the tone of your voice has been different since then.
The weight is gone off my shoulder. It used to be here.
Yeah.
I was here all the time, and I can feel it.
Yeah.
So I can,
yeah.
I sit up straight now and breathe easy.
Yeah. So good. So good. Yeah. Harriet says there isn't an answer about moving. Well, she's talking about the moving on because it's different than for everyone. I like what you said. We are living through it and moving through it. Yeah, very true, Harriet. Ernestine says, moving forward or through is so much easier when you do the deep work of total transparency with yourself.
Transparent, absolutely. Transparency, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Don't fake it. Don't act happy if you're not happy.
Yep.
If you don't feel good, say, I don't feel good today. Today's not the day. Again, it's never a license to be mean to people and mistreat folks with that.
Right.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying acknowledge it, embrace it, and just be transparent and be real about it.
And that's so true. And it took me so long to do that because I felt like, and I think a lot of people do that, right? I felt like I had to put on the happy face, the it's okay face for my children, my other children, right? I had to, I didn't want them to see, mommy sad, because they, attached to whatever I was feeling, right? If I was upset, the whole household would be upset. And, and then everything that I did feel in the moments I did allow myself were brief because I could feel it like it was going to suck me in.
Right.
Like I had like, okay, no, I can't. And so, but that transparency and that realness really gave me that similar experience, like what you had, in terms of it lifting off, because it was like a heaviness that was just indescribable, and I didn't know that I had been carrying it for so many years to that degree, and so I agree with that fully, Ernie. Janae says, Chuck, this is Janae, Ivan's wife.
Yeah. Hey, Janae.
Let's see, Jim. So let's see. Jim says, I lost 2 children. My faith carried me through the grief. I will always have a hole in my heart, but know that God who fills my heart is bigger than any hole. Keep sharing the good word, Chuck. Tina says, wow, Chuck, what a special dream. Sherry Marie says, thanks, Chuck. Great advice and blessings to you.
So get this. My wife's name was Sherry Marie.
Oh, wow. She was Sherry Marie too.
Sherry Marie.
This Sherry Marie is a beautiful soul, one of my dearest sisters. They call her the love goddess because that's what she does. She just loves on everybody. She just exudes it.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
That is.
Wow.
No coincidences.
Thank you for that. Wow. Yeah. I knew there'd be some kind of sign that would be here today.
Absolutely. Always.
Oh, isn't it? Always?
Yep.
Always. Kashana says, absolutely. I love that. Always live in your feelings, but try not to drown in them. Very true, Kashana. Very true. Monica Brady says, hi, Chuck. And Sherry Marie says, wow, I'm so honored.
Oh, wow. Thanks.
Yeah. What is so now we have the Knowing Place podcast. On the Knowing Place podcast, you've shared your story. You've stepped out and launched, and not only did you launch, you're a little bit of everywhere, right? So
I do what I can here and there,
Whatever. A little bit of everywhere, right? Stop.
I'm trying to
don't get all like that just because y'all won the championship. Now you get a little bit too confident now. I don't
Money. Somebody help Money, please. Take her to lunch or something.
I'm in denial. I'm in the denial stage of grief. We got cheated. But anyway, nevertheless.
Woo.
So, nevertheless,
yes.
here we are. Knowing Place podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about it.
So, as I said, the first 2 episodes are about why it's called The Knowing Place.
Yep.
My experience with Sherry, and then the dream that I had is episode 2. But after that, my main focus for the podcast is just healthy perspectives, whether that's on health, physical health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, whether it's conversations about race or conversations about cannabis, conversations about what justice means, any topic. So I didn't want to pigeonhole myself into this is a grief podcast. That's not what it is. It is a perspectives podcast. And I really wanted to just put it out there as a place where people could come and, again, see transparency, hear transparency, and just get, because life is all about perspectives. And we can get through and over any obstacle if we have healthy perspective. And there's no better way to get perspective than hearing others, how you made it through, or how you didn't make it through, how you failed, or how you were successful.
Yeah.
And in gathering perspectives, it helps us navigate this life, this thing we call life. So it's all about perspective, and it's an open forum, truly. A buddy of mine last night said, man, you might need to have a more narrow genre, man, because people can't really keep up if you bounce all over the place. And I was like, you know what? I see your point there, but I just want to keep it as an open platform. So I have episodes about many things, but but health, mental, spiritual, emotional health, as well as physical health are what's most important to me. And so I talk about an array of topics beyond those first 2 episodes for sure.
Awesome. Sherry Marie says, awesomeness. What's the link? So make sure you put the link when, on my page, so people can find the Knowing Place podcast, and make sure you also tell them where they can find it.
Okay. The Knowing Place podcast can be found on all your major podcast platforms. So Apple Podcast, it's on Spotify, it's on Amazon Music, any other podcast platform you can think of, just about it, you can find it there. But the biggies are there. Spotify, as I said, Apple Podcast. Just type in the Knowing Place. There's a flower there as the emblem with the Knowing Place written across it, and it's very easy to find. So check it out, please. And I also have a website, theknowingplace.net, that has links to all my podcasts. I have a blog there as well with a few blog posts. So check out the website. I'm on all the social medias, The Knowing Place, except for Twitter, which is just Knowing Place. And then my Gmail is the letter T, knowingplace@gmail.com. So please reach out, hit me up, subscribe, follow, share, and let me know if there's anything I can do to help anybody at any time.
Awesome. We've got one. We're going to take a couple more comments before we close this out.
Okay.
Janae says, when my husband died, I was blindsided. The way I was working through his cancer was believing he would survive. But when he did not, it was me having to put life back together. With God, I have been able to accept in my heart what my mind would not believe. Yeah.
I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. I totally get that. I totally
Absolutely.
get that.
And my heart still don't believe.
Wow.
The heart does not believe. That's why it drags my mind into some foolishness sometimes. Send this text. Dial the number.
I don't think that's foolishness. I think that's processing.
I apologize. I don't mean.
You know what I mean?
Right. I feel you.
Yeah. I think it's processing. Yeah. It's doing what you need to do to feel connected still, because you are,
right.
Love doesn't die. It crosses the dimensions. It crosses realities. It crosses time and space. If it was ever real, it is forever.
And there was a time I would, again, not this way anymore, but they said we progressed. But if I was in a crowd, I'd look around the crowd to see if maybe I could catch her face.
Oh, wow.
Just maybe.
Yeah, I get it.
If you look hard enough, maybe
Yeah.
That's the heart, though. The mind knows better, but the mind is gonna fall. The heart, mind fall in the heart. Whoa, let's look and see if we can find it in.
Mm-hmm.
And then the mind gets bored with that and says, "Stop the foolishness."
Yeah,
she's not in the crowd.
I don't think that stops. I mean, I was just in the store the other day and saw someone that looked exactly like my aunt. And I was like, and I couldn't stop staring at her. And I was like, is that my Aunt Deb? Is that? And I'm like, I know that's not my Aunt Deb. Why am I staring at this woman? My aunt, you know what I mean? I know it's not her, but I'm staring at her because she looked just like her. But it was, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like,
absolutely.
Why am I staring at her? No, that's not her, but I'm looking at her in some way, I don't know. I get that though. I get exactly what you're saying.
Yes.
Right. Let's see. We have Ivy. Hi, Ivy.
Hey,
Ivy
cousin.
says, hi, Chuck and Monty, so proud and love you both. We love
Love
you
you.
too.
Love you.
Kelly says, much love to you, Chuck. Love you. Sherry Marie says, love is indelible. I think that's what she says. Or undeniable. I'm not sure what she said there. So I can't see it all the way. I apologize. I didn't wear my glasses. I was yes, I was looking around. I was like,
Right.
okay. I kind of did it. I'm like, oh well, let me hope I can see it.
Right.
I hope I can see these. Let's see. And then Chema says this has to be shared, and he put the knowing place. Is it the knowingplace.net?
TheKnowingPlace.net.
Yeah, so he put it on there, the knowingplace.net. So make sure you all check out the knowingplace.net. Listen to some of the podcasts. Chuck is doing incredible work. Chema is in Costa Rica.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, we work very, very closely together. And so I would love to be able to introduce you to, because he'll be able to help take things, the Knowing Place, to the next level,
Oh,
from where it deserves to be. And so he's the man behind my brand.
oh, hit me up, brother.
Yeah, and all my new content and things like that. It's Chema Bourbon who's responsible for that. He
Fly
is
me down to Costa Rica,
incredible.
bro. Fly me down to Costa Rica. We'll have some talks and whatnot.
I'm going.
Right.
I told him, I said, we are absolutely, headed to Costa Rica,
For sure.
to that beautiful land. But maybe that's where we'll have our next business meeting. But nevertheless,
For sure.
what's your final words for
Final words.
for anyone who's dealing with grief? But I want you to talk to men specifically, because that's who we were talking about today.
First and foremost, men, speaking to men, get past the stigma of emotions, or expressing emotions equals weakness. That's a lie and foolishness. The strongest men to ever walk earth expressed emotion. They cried, they got angry, they expressed, they let you know how they felt. So again, get past those stigmas and those falsehoods. Express yourself. Don't let it degenerate though into whining or into manipulation, but or unhealthy interaction with others, but embrace your emotions when they come up, let them out. Be open with your buddies, with your friends, with your guys. Let them know how you're doing. If you're struggling, let them know you're struggling. If you need support, that you need them come get you and get you out the house, tell them to come scoop you and just ride with you, or just sit and listen to you, or cry with you, whatever it is. I have great friends that do that with me at any moment. So I just encourage you to embrace your emotions and process them and purge them. But just for everyone, again, I sincerely give love to each and every one of you. And when I say if it's something I can do for you, I do mean that. So, such as I have, I give to you. So, if I got it, you can get it. Get in touch with me. If I can help you, I'll help you.
And he's so sincere with that. I know I've called you talking about some craziness before. Like, I listen, I just need to talk. Check this out.
Right. It's all good.
And so, but then there's other times when I'm like, I'll just kind of process it myself. But you have definitely been a friend, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate you coming on here to this podcast, to the Total Life Wellness live broadcast, that we're doing here. And my prayer is that your story will help a lot of people, to learn to love unconditionally, because one thing that I know is that even though it was cut short, you experienced something that many people don't get to have. That type of love, that type of unconditional thing. And I'll be honest, that's something I hope to have someday, you know. But you got to have it, and you got to share that with us. You got to share a story with us that, in the midst of even the worst thing, you still found love. And I think that's what we're all striving for. You got to have that, right? We're all looking for that same thing. And so hearing your story, seeing what you did and how you stood by her, you didn't walk away. It's so inspiring. And I think it's inspiring to a lot of people. And like you said, you were there to the last breath, and even beyond the breath, you're still here, and you're still loving her, and you're still, sharing and going through that process. And I think that it is absolutely a beautiful thing. And it's a testament to your heart and who you are. And so I encourage all of you to absolutely go and subscribe to the Knowing Place podcast,
Please.
across whatever it is that you're listening to. And you also have a store, right?
I do. I have a Teespring store. The link is there on my website. Um,
Okay.
it's a pretty lengthy web page, so I don't want y'all to give it out. I don't want to mess it up. But the link to it is on my website. It's just a
Okay.
Teespring store with trinkets, cups, and things. But let me say this too, if I can.
Sure.
My wife Sherry was also, once she couldn't work as an attorney anymore, she started um, writing some children's books of various. She has a lot of children's books. Some are based on sports. Others are based on just some good moral stories. All of them have good moral stories. But you just Google her name, Sherry with an I, Graves, like grave, like a grave in the graveyard. Sherry Graves Smith. Just Google her name and on Amazon, or you put it on Amazon, you'll see all her books and things. So grab some books if you don't mind for children, or just sports fans, just fans in general for your favorite team that are available, and some other guys available. I just want to plug that for her.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wonderful. So make sure you go and do that. And then also, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, you'll see Mania Mandla's Total Life Wellness. Please go and subscribe. If you want to have more access to more exclusive content, there's a group right here on Facebook. You'll see Mania Mandla's Total Life Wellness there, as well as, just connect. I think that's what we're here for. We're here to connect. We're here to help walk each other through these processes, and also to spark some hope and joy in the world during these times. And so, Chuck, thank you for being my first guest of 2021.
Oh wow!
It was definitely an honor and a privilege to have this conversation with you, and to help people through. And I'm sure that things that you said were helpful to a lot of people. And I pray that it was. And so I see so many people saying, "Oh, Chema says come to Costa Rica. You're more than welcome." Andre King says, "Stay strong, bro. Love you." Ethel says, "Chuck, thank you for sharing with us." And another user whose name is not being shown says, "Love never fails. We'll meet again." And so while we know that is true, love never does fail. And so go love on each other today. Forgive now, don't wait, don't let petty things keep you divided. And, let's go out and spark some joy and some love in the world. And so what's your favorite thing? You always say peace and love, Chuck?
Peace and love.
Peace and love, y'all. Peace and love. All right. See y'all.
All right.
Stay on.
Okay.